water replenishment is for you're cooking all day and multiple days. I mean, you have to tend it pretty well.
No.
You're not as high a temperature as they run if you're running as a crock pot, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, it's actually really minimal.
Yeah, it shouldn't evaporate off much at all.
I keep the lid on it, so I'm usually cooking like 3-day meats. I won't even add water. You know, the lid holds the water so well. It's not going to boil off, no much risk unless you're going for, I don't know, the 1 week zero collagen meat or something. It's going to start to cook through after 3 days, I think, to the point where it's not going to be that desirable.
No nutrient value left at all.
But what's really cool if you're having guests over for dinner is not only did you not have to really do anything, but when the guests come over, you can like hang out with them and then just like grab the food and dump it out of the bag and sear it real quick or something. But you know, there's no big prep at the last minute. It's just all there. It's been marinating. It's ready to go. Nice. So that's been cool. So I'm going to show one more version, and then I'll get into the controller. There's another application. Here it is. So this is the hot plate version. So this is a little 900 watt electric hot plate. And here's a pot just for illustration purposes. But usually what I'll do is I'll put this on low because it tends to really, these electric hot plates just jump so fast in temperature. And I'll plug it into the controller, throw the temp probe in here, and I'll often use this for making cheese. So cheese, has anyone made cheese here before? What kind of cheese?
Mozzarella.
Mozzarella. Okay, so we make mozzarella almost every other week, right?
Yeah.
And mozzarella isn't too bad. I think you usually have to only hold 2 temperatures. Is that? It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Okay, well, it's I think usually what 86 and
103.
yeah, something like that. They're not too
It's
high.
a pain in the ass just to maintain a temperature for an extended period of time to make cheese, and cheese is a whole day affair. You and this pot are like glued for 10 hours.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not fun.
I think when most people make cheese, they have a little like holder timer thing, so they drop the probe in. It looks just like this, and then you can set an alarm when the stove gets to a certain temperature, and you go run over and turn off the heat and stir it up and add the next ingredient. But we make cheese like every Tuesday, and every Tuesday, like 3 more gallons of milk. What are we gonna do? And so
we like come up with tasks that keep us in the kitchen. Like, well, okay, I can spend the day in the kitchen doing this other thing.
Right.
It's not bad.
Make more kimchi or something. But
It wouldn't go very long in my house.
yeah, so it's a lot of work. But cheese, it does pay off too, because you're making these like 3-pound wheels, which would even organic cheese 3 pounds. Oh my god, it'd be like $40 on cheese each week. But so what we do is we just set the temperature controller for the first level the cheese needs to get to, and so we can just come back whenever, because cheese is really cool about staying at those temperatures for long periods of time. In fact, usually in the cooked recipes they just give you a minimum amount of time. So they bring the temp to 86 and they stay for at least 20 minutes. But I'll come back like 2 hours later and it's still 86, and I can do the next step. I don't have to be in the kitchen. So I finally kind of freed my way of Tuesdays in the kitchen making cheese, and this has helped quite a bit for that. I recently sold a temp controller to some kids in Vermont who were making maple syrup. And apparently for a high school kid, making maple syrup is like the most economical way to use your time on weekends, because it's like, I don't know, like $15 a gallon or something.
Sell it for gold,
What is it? It's very carefully watching a bucket boil.
Well, yeah, after they collect the taps, you gotta boil it down, and I don't know what temperatures they use, probably somewhere between 180 and 220 or something. They got a hold of that. So he just, him and his buddies get together and, I don't know, smoke pot and let the temperature controller get to work now, so they don't have to hold those temperatures for days. But that's another thing. I think we just sold another temperature controller to one of our neighbors who makes guitars, and he does horse glue. So he makes guitars, and you gotta use horse glue, you can use a luther, and apparently for a lot of luthers that's the common binder to use these days, and that needs to be held at about 130 degrees for ideal adhesive purposes and not, I don't know, cooking it out to the point where it's not as effective. So he's putting horse glue in his temperature controller world.
Wow.
And I think there'd be others. I mean, for us, I think the next thing to try is probably to put a little stovetop smoker on here and try to do some cold smoking and low temp smoking. So that'll be the next thing we give it a try to. But I'll show you how this hooks up now and a little more on the controller. So the controller is pretty simple in terms of once it's assembled. We got 2 buttons. Yeah, sorry. No, it's no longer providing illustration services,
Yeah.
just blocking. Let's see, what am I cut on here? All right, this controller's got a ton of wires. So on the display here, we can read the temperature right now. So it's saying it's like 69 degrees in here, and if I have my hand all over it, it'll jump a little bit. So there's also 2 buttons. Those are really the only controls. You just say what you want to set the temperature to. So you can just hold one or up or one down to raise or lower the set temperature. And if you hold them both together, that'll save it into the EEPROM. So that means you can remove all the power and it'll remember your previous temperature.
Nice.
You should probably even use this for your hot plate soldering thing. You
Yeah,
use
probably.
it for service mount component placement.
What's its top and bottom range of this?
I've limited this, so maybe not actually. How hot were you going with your hot plate?
I was turning it up to 200 Celsius.
Okay, yeah, that's too hot. You're burning the bread. The bread will melt. So this I've limited the temp max at 255. One, because it's 8-bit and it makes things a little easier on my tiny cheap processor.
Excellent.
But yeah, so unsigned 8-bit. And anyway, we have just generic plugs, and this is kind of unusual about my device. I actually just made so you could plug stuff in. All the other temp controllers out there always like some crazy, like you gotta cut this wire on the AC hot. So this is just, you can just plug right in. So this is whatever application. So whether it's the fermentation chamber, the hot plate, the sous vide, or I call it a sous vide, it's a crock pot, or a refrigerator, you just plug it right in on this side. The other side goes to the wall power. And finally, there's just one power plug for the circuit itself, so that stays separate from the other AC. So one of the important temperature magic numbers with this controller is 65 degrees. So if you ever set it above 65 degrees, it considers it a heating application. It means it's going to be using like a sous vide or a fermentation chamber or hot plate. It is not for a refrigerator at that point. So it'll hold above the temperature you give it. So you say basically 90 is my zone. And if you set it below 65 degrees for the set temperature, it is assuming you have a refrigerator plugged in. So if you set it to 35 degrees, it says, okay, I'm going to do whatever I have to stay below 35 degrees. And that's kind of, it's in the firmware. It's not really hard-coded. If you have a programmer, you could override that. And then finally, let's see. There is a 3-minute delay that Tom was mentioning. So the reason I put the 3-minute delay in is for a refrigerator. You know, if you have a refrigerator that's jumping around in temperature because you just decided to put like a hot piece of leftover chicken in there, you know, so the refrigerator immediately is going to start spiking. And as soon as the compressor kicks on and it cools down, it's going to go right up again. You need to give a refrigerator a little bit of a break, or it will burn out its compressor. So I put in a 3-minute delay, so the temperature can skew quite a bit in that 3 minutes. But the idea is, let's not blow up, you know, multi-$100, if not $1,000 refrigerator units. And it's actually really cool on a refrigerator having a temperature display at all, because usually you got to buy like a pretty expensive fridge to even
How's
get
the
that.
calibration done?
On this,
On the circuit itself. I mean, what's it calibrated to, or you know, is it?
well, this is a resistance-based probe,
Mhm.
so it's like using a thermistor.
Okay.
I use a 100K voltage divider, and I had to do a chart. So I used a better temperature device and had to map out a chart of where the curves were, because they're nonlinear for thermistor data. So I had to map it out and do everything from 0 to 255 and do it multiple times and figure it out. So now I know where the curves are. So I have basically like 10 different areas where the function changes a little bit for kind of thermistor craziness.
That's a thermistor in there, not a thermocouple.
Yeah, it's not thermocoupled. And so, and then there's just an A to C pin it's connected to. So I did my calibration basically by hand, figuring it out, and I had to look for different probes that would work right with the range of temperatures we're interested, basically low temperature cooking here. So it's accurate to probably about 1/3 of a degree Fahrenheit. So it's not so different actually than food grade stuff.
If somebody wanted to hack a thermocouple in there, though, all you need to do is just plug the voltage right in.
I think you need an amplifier for a thermocouple.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty low.
they're pretty quiet in terms
5
of.
milliamps.
Yeah. You probably could pick up enough to do a certain range okay, but you'll need to amplify for your thermocouple to get better. And I'm not sure there'd be a whole lot of advantage for these applications anyway, because they're just not, you know, if you need that precision. And then there's kind of a whole nother world of uses for this temperature controller I didn't mention. I was speaking about food, but like I know Tom and I both have